in the book of Matthew, talking about following Jesus and what it means to be a disciple and what it means to follow him. And this week we're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 9. This is the passage where Jesus says that the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And, like I said earlier, today is Super Bowl Sunday. Maybe you care, maybe you don't, but a lot of people do. A lot of people do, care a lot about football and a lot about sports. When I think about the Super Bowl, one of the things I think about is 22 players on the field that desperately need a rest and 4,000 people in the stands that desperately need exercise. Things are a little bit backwards, right? And sometimes it can be like that in the church. Sometimes not just Mercy Church, but the church in general is a lot of times the staff of the church, the ministry leaders, the elders, the deacons, the whatever you want to call us, the pastors of the church, sometimes can exhaust themselves to the point of burnout and frustration, and then the people in the audience, the people in the congregation, they think of themselves as an audience, and really you're not an audience. The Lord is the audience. The Lord is the one watching this, and our praises are sung to him, and the message is his message to share with you. So really, God is the audience of what we do, and all of us are ministers. I mean, remember that book out a few years ago, Kyle Idleman wrote, Not a Fan? That God doesn't want us to be fans. He wants us to be players on the field. He wants us to be kingdom workers. And this passage reminds us of that God's given us a mission, and that mission is in front of us as a church, like a harvest field. Now, God calls us to be laborers in this harvest. And so you think like a farm. I mean, most of us, this generation, probably didn't grow up on farms. That's probably like our grandparents or maybe even our great-grandparents. But you wake up in the morning and you feed all these kids. My grandfather was one of 14 kids, and he had a twin. So my grandfather's name is Chester, and his twin brother's name is Lester. So imagine Chester and Lester, waking up with all of their brothers and sisters. And my other grandfather, Benjamin Walter, he went by Walt. My middle name is Walter from my grandfather. I'm so glad I got that one instead of the Chester. My brother's name is Chester. My dad's name is Chester. My grandpa's name is Chester. And I came second, so I got lucky with Thomas Walter. But my other grandfather also grew up on a farm. And there were 4 in his family. And, when you think about these old days where everybody wake up on a farm and you'd feed all these kids, why did you feed them? You fed them because you got to send them out in the field to work. Eat a big breakfast. Why? Because you got lots of chores to do. I don't want you coming in at 11 o'clock. I'm hungry. I want you to be able to feel sustained because you got a lot of work to do on this farm. It takes a lot of work to make a farm function. And the Lord feeds us and then sends us out into the fields because there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of ministry that needs to be done, reaching out to the lost and broken. We don't live in the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden, everything is perfect. But now, everything is broken. And there are many people that sense that brokenness. They sense it, but they don't know what to do about it. They don't know how to resolve it. They don't know how to make things right or how to be right. And the mission field is ready, and the church has to recognize that and step out of faith. And remember that the mission field isn't just on the other side of the globe. The mission field literally is on the other side of the street. Sometimes on the other side of the house is our mission field. So we want to pray for opportunities to share the gospel and step boldly into those moments. The ladies that you saw baptized on the video this morning were baptized this week. And Vicky and Rob went with me to their home. They had some questions. A friend put us in touch, and they had some spiritual questions. And so we stopped by their home and visited with them and just listened to their story and shared the gospel with them. And when I asked them about giving their life to Christ and being baptized, Phoenix, the daughter, she's 15, she said, I want to do that, but nobody's ever told me how. I want to give my life to Christ, but nobody's ever told me how. And she just literally just like, help me understand. And so we just started right there and shared the gospel that all of us are sinners and all of us have fallen short of the glory of God, and none of us have perfectly obeyed God's commandments, but Christ has taken the sacrifice, taken our punishment for us, that if we put our faith and trust in him, that we can be saved now and for all eternity. And they were so happy to hear this message. And you forget, because the world makes it sound like it's such bad news. But when the starving heart hears the simplicity of the gospel and God's love for us, and a smile comes over their face because suddenly they see hope. And people need that hope. And the church needs to take those opportunities and pray for more opportunities. It's not enough to just pray. Okay, let me read the passage, because if I don't read the passage, I'm just going to keep preaching. And in my head, I've read it, all week. But let me read it to you. Okay. Jesus went through all the towns and villages. Notice how many of them, all of them, the big ones and the small ones, because the Lord loves everybody. And so he takes his time to stop and give opportunity to people in their own village, in their own language, in their own time, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every sickness and disease. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. And literally, the Greek language has the idea of like he felt it in his gut. He feels a burden. He feels a pain. I mean, think, he knows what heaven is and he knows what hell is. And he knows the struggles of what life is like on this earth. And remember, he was there when everything was created. He remembers Eden. He remembers the way it's supposed to be, a God's original design. And when he sees the deaf and the mute and the blind and the lame and the broken, and he sees the marriages splintering and the families separating, he has a burden for this because none of this was intended to be this way. Everything is under the mar or the curse of sin, and everything is under the fallenness of sin. You say, what do you mean by that? Well, imagine one of my favorite illustrations. I love this. It's so simple, but it's just a helpful way. Even children understand this. And, if your illustration is really good, then kids will understand it and appreciate it. And then adults, we get it too. But imagine mommy is going to make a cake for daddy's birthday. Okay, so mommy is going to make a cake for daddy's birthday, and his favorite cake is chocolate with white icing. And so you want to help. You want to help make daddy's cake. You want to help make this special cake for daddy, and you want him to be proud of you. And so you ask mommy if you can help. And mommy's already made all the batter, and she's, working on the icing, and she's about to pour the batter into the cake mix. You've been outside playing in the sandbox, and you've got sand all over your hands. And for a moment, when mommy steps away, you stand up on your stool next to the cake, and you do one of these numbers right into the cake. Okay? And you start to stir it. Well, when mommy comes back out and she sees what you're doing, you haven't washed your hands, she says, wait a minute, did you get sand in the cake? Well, the problem is you're 3 years old, you don't even know what you do. So no, I don't know what I did. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just making cake for daddy. And so she makes you wash your hands, but it's too late. She doesn't know it, but it's too late. And now you finish making the cake, and mommy bakes it, takes it out, lets it cool off, ices it, decorates it. Happy birthday, daddy. Candles on it. Daddy comes home. This great moment of celebration. Everybody's very happy. You know what? The cake looks perfect, doesn't it? It looks perfect. You would never know there was anything wrong with it by the way it looks. The cake smells perfect. The whole house is filled with the pleasant aroma of this chocolate cake. Everybody's very proud. Everybody's very excited. Everybody's very happy. But then what happens? As soon as you take a bite into this cake, it doesn't take but one bite for you to realize there's something wrong with this cake. And you're trying to ignore the problem, but everybody can tell that something's not right with this. And actually, you know what? The cake is ruined. There's no way you could eat this. Even though it smells good, looks good, and even tastes good, the flavor is perfect. Because sand, what does sand taste like? It doesn't really ruin the flavor, but there's something like when you bite down on it, you just get that gravelly grit in your teeth. Guys, this is the way the world works right now. God's original design, you can see it everywhere. You can see the beauty. You can see the wonder. When we look at mountains, when we look at oceans, we look at the beauty of his creation. Yes, the fingerprint of God is all over the creation. When we experience love and the beauty of love, when you see love demonstrated, when you see justice and righteousness and goodness and honor, you see bravery and loyalty, we can almost see what Eden was like. But the reality is when you bite into this life, you get that grit of bitterness, of tension, of anxiety, of anger. When you bite into this life, what you'll realize is there's kind of something wrong with everything. Everything's a little bit broken. Everything's a little bit off. You know, it's so bad that there are many people that say there must not even be a God. Because why would everything be broken and ruined and fail? Why would our bodies get sick? Why would toddlers have cancer? Why would marriages split in divorce? Why would God allow this tragedy into my life? I don't even think there is a God. Because when we bite into life, we experience that grit, that grimy, granular brokenness of sin. And it has infected the entire universe. It has permeated creation. It has broken everything, including us. Even we are broken by sin. We weren't created to die. We were created to live, but all of us will die. God said, on the day you eat of it, you will surely die. Remember, the serpent said, you won't die. But God said, you will surely die. And we've been dying ever since. And people literally are dying to hear the truth of God's word. But they reject it because they bit into this cake before and they experienced something wrong with it. We have to help them to see that, God's original design, his original plan is perfect. We are the ones that have introduced sin into the world. And you can't just blame Adam and Eve, because what about you? You also have eaten from that tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And all of us are guilty. And when Jesus sees these people on the streets, he sees the suffering. He sees the woman with the issue of blood. He sees the man who's born deaf. He sees the man who's born blind. He sees the man who's paralyzed and carried by his friends. When Jesus experiences the brokenness of humanity, he is angry at sin, but he feels compassion for the people. He sighs, he moans, and his heart breaks for the broken condition that all of us live in. And who more than him experienced suffering as a result of sin? And not because he deserved it. He was innocent and righteous, and yet he suffered the same or worse than all of us suffer in this world. And so his heart breaks for the people of this world. It's okay to get angry at sin. I think it's just to get angry at sin and the effects of sin. Recognize that you also are a sinner. You can't just look down your nose at sinners, because you're looking down your nose at yourself. And maybe some of this self-hatred gets poured out on others, but all of us are guilty. It's good to get angry at the things that anger God, but recognize that Jesus wasn't angry with the people who were suffering under the weight of sin, because what? They are not the enemy. They're not the enemy. They're captives of the enemy. And that changes your perspective as a believer. When you walk out into the world, instead of getting angry at the people of this world because of the sin in their lives, recognize that these people, they're captive to the enemy. And they need what? They don't need to be yelled at. They don't need to be screamed at. They need to be freed. They need to be forgiven. They need to hear the freedom that God offers. Look, if you didn't have food for 3 days, maybe longer, it may take some of us longer. If you didn't have food for 7 days, 8 days, 9 days, you might eat out of a dumpster too. You know what I'm saying? And so you look at the people of this world and you're like, man, they're just living in the dumpsters of the world. Look at how they do relationships. Look at how they talk about sex. Look at how they treat one another. Look at how they spend their time, their money. They're living life in the dumpster. They're living in the gutters. Well, if you didn't have a meal set before you every day, Who knows what you might be capable of doing? And look, the world around us, they don't have hope. They don't know the hope that we have in Christ. So they're going to reach for anything to satisfy. They're going to reach for anything that will fill the emptiness inside. But we want to steer them away from the lies and steer them away from the deception and show them the truth. You know, and many people like Christina and Phoenix, many people will receive that truth. Some won't, but that's okay. I mean, it's up to them. Everybody has freedom to choose what they want, but it's our responsibility to, when you walk through the apple orchard and some of the apples are ripe and they're just hanging there, they're easy to pick. The ones at the top are a little harder. Maybe we send missionaries to those. But the ones at the bottom of the tree, just pull them off. Just, save those who will be saved. Reach out to those who will be reached. Share the gospel with those who have ears to hear. Jesus did this. This is the model he laid out for us. He said, if you have ears to hear, let him hear. But if you don't have ears to hear, then this is forbidden knowledge to you. And maybe someday in your life, when you get tired of living in the dumpsters of this world and you recognize there's no lasting sustenance there, maybe then you'll have ears to hear. The prodigal son, he didn't have ears to hear until he got to the end of his fortune. When he got to the end of his fortune, then suddenly he was ready. And he said to himself, self, you know what I'm talking about, self. You have to talk to yourself sometimes. You preach a lot to your kids, you preach a lot to your friends, you preach a lot about people at work, but do you ever preach to yourself? Some of the best messages you'll ever hear are the ones that you preach to yourself. And the prodigal son said, self, you need to arise and go back to your father. We've had a lot of baptisms recently. It's awesome. The Lord is working in our little church, our little experiment, our little, what do they call that in the mafia? Our little family, our little nuestra, costa nuestra, whatever they call it, our little thing. The Lord's working in our little thing. And it's awesome to see it. We've had baptisms every week. I know we've got another baptism next Sunday. If any of you guys want to be baptized today, let me know. We'll take care of it. But it's awesome to see the Lord working like that because some people are ready. Some people are receptive. They've tried enough of the world to know. It doesn't fill me. I'm still empty. Wait, I didn't finish the passage. Where are we at? He had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless. Now, nobody's really helpless. Right? But when you think about like the man who was paralyzed and his friends brought him, he's pretty helpless. There's no wheelchairs. There's no social security system. There's no mobility chairs or anything like that. He just had to rely on friends and a rug. I mean, they literally drug him there, picked him up and carried him on a rug. Nobody's really helpless completely. But as far as getting yourself saved into heaven, we're all pretty helpless. So the Lord, he sees from that perspective that like as far as getting right with God and being okay for eternity, you're pretty helpless. It's like trying to jump a 90-foot chasm. You might get like 9 foot, but you're not getting 90 feet. So if you try to jump from this side of the cliff to that side of the cliff over this chasm, it doesn't matter how far you can jump. You can jump 10 feet. I can jump 3. Doesn't matter. We're all going to end up at the bottom. And so in terms of getting right with God, all of our voodoo and all of our candles and all of our incense and all of our prayer walking up mountains and all of our, I'm going to travel to this holy site and there, and all of that, none of that helps us make it to heaven. It can all help us find some peace in our life. It can help us find some serenity. It can help us learn to accept stuff that we can't change. It might be of value to you, but it's not going to help you for eternity. God sent the help that we need. See, we look for anything else, any other option, when we only need one option that works. And God has sent us the way, the truth, the life. There is one name under heaven given to men by which we must be saved. There is one door. And we only need one way, but we look for alternatives. And Jesus sees the world searching, looking, seeking, trying to find anything else besides the truth, and he sees them as helpless and harassed. Like sheep without a shepherd. Now, what happens when sheep don't have a shepherd? They're in danger. That's the idea, is they're in danger because sheep, they don't have a lot of defense mechanisms. It's not like they have claws, or they can run fast. Most animals can camouflage, or they can run fast, or they've got claws, or They got some way of fighting back, but then they're sheep. I mean, sheep just like rely on a shepherd to take care of them. In fact, they need a shepherd to even show them where the food is. They might just, be in the wrong place where there's no pasture and be in real trouble, and they need to be led. And the image that God gives of his people is like sheep. And he is the good shepherd. And so he sees people as sheep without a shepherd, as harassed and helpless and lost. And he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few." It's like saying it like this. There's no problem with need out there. The problem is people to meet the need. Okay, let me say it this way. There's no shortage of people who are going through problems, troubles, and crisis out there. In fact, there's no shortage of them in here, right? If we're honest, we're going through trouble, crisis, and trauma and all that. But there's no shortage of people outside these doors that need help. The real problem is, are there people here that are willing to help meet those needs? That's the real shortage. Now watch what he says, because what he says is just amazing. He says, pray that the Lord would send workers into the harvest field. Pray. That's a good prayer, right? Pray, God, raise up people. You could get a little more specific. Raise up this generation. See, then it gets more like powerful. Like, raise up this generation to be missionaries, ministers, pastors, evangelists. Raise up this generation to be teachers and professors and musicians and artists and creatives. Raise up. You could really go with this if you wanted to. But what's cool about this passage is not really what's in this passage. It's what's right after this passage. I don't have the verse written up there. I didn't give it to the guy, but because I really didn't know what to put in there, except because I don't need to put anything there. But what's really cool about this, he says, pray that God would raise up workers. So here they are. God, please raise up workers, Lord. Please raise up a generation of people who will know you and love you and go out there and preach the gospel. So imagine them praying, right? You know what's amazing? The very next chapter, the very next verse, the very next chapter is chapter 10. You know what the heading is over the text in the NIV? Speak. Yes. I didn't think I could speak in tongues, but maybe, I don't know. It might be one of those gifts I didn't know I had. But Jesus sends out the 12 disciples. Okay? That's the next passage. Jesus sends out the 12 disciples. You see what he did to them? Pray that God would raise up workers to go into the harvest field. Very next verse. By the way, that's going to be you guys. I'm going to send you. So what's the message for us? If you're going to pray for it, then you got to be willing to act on it. Don't pray for something that you aren't ready to be a part of the solution for. What if you pray for it and God says, okay, yeah, you know what? You go. See, maybe that's why we don't want to pray these kinds of things, because we may know that we're implicating ourselves. Wait, I don't really want to fund this. I don't really want to risk anything. I just want to pray. Pray and then go. So pray, and watch this. It's not fair for us to beg and plead for God to do something and for him to care about it more than we do. Lord, I want you to care about this thing. I'm praying. I'm beseeching you. I'm seeking you. I'm pleading the blood. I'm coming in and I'm praying for a hedge. I'm asking for it. I'm laying it down. I'm putting out my fleece. And so you can do all these creative things to tell God how important this is to you. And then God says, really, that's really important to you? Okay. You get up and take your Bible and you go across the street. Oh, no. I want you to care about it, God. I don't really want to care about it. I'm handing it to you, Lord. But here's the problem. It's the Lord that commissions us. We don't commission the Lord to make disciples. The Lord commissioned us to make disciples. And we don't have to wonder and ask and debate about something that God has commanded us to do. See, the problem is not with God. The problem is on our end. And that first step, I think, in overcoming this is for us to at least pray about it. Lord, what do you want us to do? Lord, where can we make a difference? Lord, what are the opportunities? Where can we make an impact in our world? Lord, where are the needs? Where are the concerns? And if we would pray about that, what happens is our heart starts to soften to whatever God might tell us to do. But we've got to be a part of the solution, part of the solution to this problem. Man, that's good stuff. I don't care what you say. I don't know if you're awake or asleep, but whatever. Jesus saw the crowds not as a burden, but as sheep without a shepherd, as lost, vulnerable, and in need of direction. You know, it's interesting too, because I think sometimes we don't really take time to notice the people around us. This weekend is MegaCon. Sounds like a guy in prison, doesn't it? Like an evil villain. Superman versus MegaCon. Actually, MegaCon is like Comic-Con. It's a big conference, a big convention. It travels all over. Maybe outside of America. I don't know. I don't really care about comic books and superheroes either. But, Harrison, my son, loves all of that stuff. And so Star Wars and, Supernatural and what else? There was a lot of stuff there. Spider-Man, Jedis, wizards, blah, 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 Batman. So MegaCon is in Orlando right now at the convention center. And I've never been to any of these, and Harrison's never been. So we decided on Friday, let's go. Let's go check it out. Man, this place is huge. I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Orlando Convention Center or Orange County Convention Center, but we never got out of the exhibit hall. They have classes. I was like, what are their classes on? It was like how to dance like a superhero. I'm like, not interested. If I was a superhero, it's not because I could dance. I mean, it had weird classes going on all around us. How to play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, I don't want the devil in my life. I'm not going to play that, but whatever. We went through the exhibit hall, and I basically just followed him around like a kid in the candy shop as he went from, oh, look at all these lightsabers you can make. Oh, look at all these, and everybody, it's a fun time. Everybody's dressed up in costumes. It's pretty much like Halloween, but it's more superhero themed and Jedi themed and all that. And there's some weird people out there. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's some strange, and all of them descend at Comic-Con. Like everybody's there. A lot of celebrities there. You can meet people, and we did meet a few people. John, I put a couple pictures up there. So that's the guy from Karate Kid. Remember Johnny on Karate Kid? Okay, we didn't really meet him, but I just took his picture. That was the best looking Darth Maul I've ever seen other than the guy in the movie. He was perfect. Okay, next, who else we got? That's Ralph Mouth. Remember Ralph Mouth? Look, wait, we go back to that. Over the top of that lady's head is Potsy. Anson Williams, yeah. This is the one guy Harrison wanted to meet that was there. He's the Jim Gordon on the show Gotham. I don't know if you've ever watched Gotham. He's like, look how small he is. I was like, what in the world? Anyway, super nice guy. Next. This guy, you know what? Why did I put this picture up here? Let me come back to it. Go back to the next one. Whatever's next. Oh, yeah, there he is again. Okay. That's just a picture of a bunch. This is what it looks like in there. It's just a bunch of art, a bunch of creative stuff. If you've never been, it's a bunch of people walking around looking at things. All right, next. That's it. All right, go back to that picture of the guy at the table. One thing I noticed there, being a Christian myself, I'm walking through and I'm just kind of every once in a while checking in with the Lord. And I'm like, there's not a very strong Christian witness here. In fact, sometimes there was a little bit of the opposite. Like there was some stuff for like witchcraft and that kind of thing. There was a table that had a bunch of stickers. People love stickers. They put them on laptops. They put them on guitar cases. And there were all kinds of stickers. And it was the typical stuff, certain flags. And there was Nazi symbols with a circle and a line across them, no fascists. But right next to the no Nazis was a cross with a circle and a line through it. I was like, wow, no Christians, no Christ. Yikes. Not a very strong Christian presence or Christian witness at an event like that. Here's a bunch of people that idolize superheroes. They idolize creative. They idolize, thought and interest, lots of interest, but not a very strong Christian presence. Go back to that guy at the table. I met this fellow, I don't remember his name. I introduced myself to him. But he's the guy that created the Action Bible. It's like a comic book Bible. We've had those in our house. We've read them to the kids. And I was kind of the only guy I saw there that was openly, a Christian in that thousands of people. And one little light shining. His table wasn't very busy. There wasn't a lot of people stopping to talk to him, but and that's the way it can feel sometimes in this world.